My name is Tessa Morgan and I am 31 years old. Early in December, my phone lit up with a text from my mom. The message said, "Christmas this year is just your brother's family." I stared at the screen for 3 seconds. Then I smiled and typed back, "No problem." What my mom and dad didn't know was that I had already bought a $2 million resort-style house in Scottsdale, Arizona. The house was huge, and it had a big swimming pool that glowed like a rainbow at night in the desert. I opened my phone contacts and quietly sent invitations to every relative they had not invited. I also added some friends who actually cared about me and had always been kind. By the time the first photo from my house appeared on social media, their small, fancy dinner looked empty compared to my crowded, bright, and lively home. Phones started buzzing everywhere. Messages came from all directions. Everyone was noticing, and it felt really good. If you have ever been the brother or sister left off a guest list, this story is for you. Share your story in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe to see what happens next. I grew up in a suburb just outside Tucson, Arizona. From the very beginning, I was always in my older brother Derek's shadow. He was 4 years older than me. He was tall, strong, and athletic, like the boys on cereal boxes. Our house seemed to move around his schedule. If he had soccer practice, everyone had to plan around it. If he had football games, the living room, the TV, and even the dining table became his space. Whatever I did, it was like I was invisible. When I was 12 years old, I spent weeks preparing for a coding contest at our local library. Coding is like giving instructions to a computer so it can do something useful. The contest asked us to make a program to help food bank trucks deliver food faster. I spent nights mapping out all the neighborhoods, thinking about traffic patterns and testing my program on my slow, old desktop computer. I kept changing it until it made the deliveries 23% faster. The day of the contest, I put on my only nice blazer, the one I had saved for special occasions, and carried my laptop to the library. I showed my program to a group of engineers. They looked very serious, but when I finished, they smiled and said, "Congratulations. You won first place." They gave me a shiny, polished trophy and told me I could show my project at a bigger, statewide competition. I was so excited. I carried my trophy home on the bus, practicing what I would say to my mom. When I walked in the front door, Mom was folding laundry in the living room. "I won regionals," I said, holding up my trophy. She looked at me for a moment, then said, "That's great, honey." I felt my heart sink. Then the front door slammed. Derek ran in, still wearing his muddy sports uniform. "Mom, I threw the game-winning touchdown in overtime," he shouted. Mom dropped the laundry, hugged him, and started calling relatives before he even finished talking. Dad came home a few minutes later, patted Derek on the back, and suggested framing the newspaper article about his football game. My shiny trophy ended up on a dusty bookshelf behind old books, almost invisible. For years later, when I was 16, I spent late nights building an app for our house. The app helped keep track of school assignments, practice schedules, and weekend jobs. It showed deadlines in colors. Green meant everything was fine, yellow meant be careful, and red meant there was a conflict. I showed it to Dad one evening while he graded papers at the dining table. He looked at it for a second and said, "Handy tool," then closed the cover. Meanwhile, Derek's recruiter from the state called him. "You can have a full academic scholarship if you keep your grades up," they said. I exported my app to his device anyway. It worked perfectly, but he never mentioned it again. I stopped expecting anyone in my family to notice my achievements. I learned to measure success not by applause, but by what I could do quietly and well. Report cards with straight A's earned only a quick "good job" before the conversation shifted back to Derek's football games. My science fair ribbons sat in a drawer while his jerseys hung on the wall like trophies. My freelance coding jobs that paid for my phone bills went completely unnoticed. The pattern was clear. Derek's milestones demanded celebration, and mine only deserved tolerance. After high school, I left Tucson and went to Arizona State University to study technology and business. I had no scholarship. Everything was on my own. I packed my car to the brim and drove across the state, feeling nervous but excited. Tuition loans loomed over me like storm clouds, but I was determined to make my own way. Campus orientation felt like a fresh start. I skipped parties and focused on my studies, learning about big computer systems, scalable software, and how to start a business. Nights blurred into working shifts at a diner, serving students who studied late, while I scribbled business ideas on napkins. During my sophomore year, a housing crisis hit students. Many lost money to fake sublets and ghost landlords. I built an app that verified sublets with university IDs, processed payments safely, and flagged suspicious listings. By the time I was a junior, 5,000 students had downloaded the app. I ran servers from my dorm room, fixed bugs between classes, and pitched the app at demo days for small grants to cover hosting costs. But then a big competitor entered the market, and user complaints increased. My app could not keep up, and within 14 months, I owed $40,000 in loans and bills. I had to close the project and archive all the code. Nobody in Tucson noticed or cared. Mom called casually, "Heard your little project folded." Dad added over the phone, "Derek's coach got a steady job now." I stacked my boxes in silence, understanding that different paths required me to manage on my own. Soon after, a luxury villa company in Phoenix hired me as a coordinator. I scheduled cleanings, handled chefs, and solved problems like malfunctioning gate codes at midnight. I learned a lot about how vacation homes worked. I noticed a big opportunity. Rich travelers wanted perfect experiences, and villa owners wanted their homes rented for high prices without trouble. After graduation, I went to a real estate tech conference in Phoenix. During a break, I saw Ethan Cole. I had met him before in a seminar about algorithms. Ethan had helped make rental properties earn more money. We grabbed coffee and talked about our startup challenges. Together, we sketched an idea on a notepad. We called it Lux Stay. Lux Stay was an app that only offered the very best villas and resorts. No shared pools with strangers, private chefs, helicopter transfers, and everything organized for rich travelers who wanted perfect trips. Property owners paid us to market their homes. Travelers paid for smooth bookings and no surprises. Meanwhile, Derek got married to Isabella Harper, whose family owned a huge resort empire in the Southwest. The wedding was glamorous, and everyone in my family talked about it non-stop. I sent a card from afar and focused on my new project with Ethan. We started Lux Stay in a small garage. 2 laptops, whiteboards full of ideas, and late-night tacos became our life. Growth came quickly. A celebrity posted a photo of a Scottsdale villa we listed. The next day, bookings doubled. We hired our first employee, a concierge from a 5-star hotel who knew how to get yachts on demand. Word spread fast. Hedge fund managers, tech executives, and busy travelers wanted private, perfect vacations. By the second year, we expanded our listings to Hawaii and Aspen. We added a membership tier with priority access and loyalty points for spa visits. Ethan handled tech upgrades while I negotiated partnerships with property managers in Miami and Napa. We opened offices in downtown Phoenix and South Beach. Our staff grew to 50, including development, customer service, and sales teams. Privacy was the most important thing for our clients. Our revenue came from a 15% commission on bookings, professional photography fees, and a white-label service for boutique hotels wanting our tech stack without building it themselves. Every quarter, our reports showed 7-figure months. Venture firms started reaching out with offers to invest. Ethan and I debated over breakfast burritos whether to take the money or keep control. Through it all, I remembered the quiet moments of my childhood. The times when my trophies and projects went unnoticed, when my accomplishments were invisible next to Derek's. That feeling fueled me to build something real and lasting. I learned that even if no one cheers for you at first, your hard work can create a future so bright it cannot be ignored. By the time I invited my family to my Scottsdale home for Christmas, I had done just that. My house was full of laughter, lights, and joy. Friends and relatives who had supported me all along were there. The pool glowed in the desert night, reflecting the warmth inside. For the first time, my achievements were impossible to ignore. I realized then that success isn't about being noticed by everyone in the world, or even by your family. Success is about building something meaningful, something that works, something that makes people's lives better. And maybe, just maybe, it also makes you proud enough to finally invite your story into the light. We chose a partner who understood fancy hotels and let us stay part of the decision-making team. The money we got helped us make a smart computer program that could change hotel prices, depending on things like festivals or celebrities visiting nearby. Guests loved staying with us. They gave us 4.9 stars and said very nice things about little touches, like fridges that already had the food they liked when they arrived. After 4 years, a big hotel company wanted to buy our business. We talked a lot over phone calls and meetings in Manhattan. Lawyers looked at every little rule in the papers. In the end, the deal gave us $20 million in cash and stock. There were no tricky rules to wait for more money later. After paying taxes and splitting with Ethan, I had $10 million in my account. I stared at the number for a full minute, amazed, then closed the banking app and started looking at houses. Lots of real estate agents in Scottsdale sent me house pictures, but one house made me stop scrolling. It had 5 bedrooms, was built into the desert hillside, and had a pool that looked like it went on forever. There was an outdoor kitchen with a pizza oven and a small guest house separate from the main house. The house felt like a resort, with fire pits around a central courtyard, smart shades that lowered at sunset, and a home theater with chairs that vibrated during action movies. I walked around at dusk, felt the quiet, and made a cash offer that night. The sale closed in 21 days. I signed the papers in jeans while the seller toasted with champagne. $2 million changed hands, and the keys felt heavier than any trophy. I kept the house a secret from my family. Every year, we still went to Tucson for Christmas like normal. I flew on a regular plane, rented a mid-size car, and slept on the same pull-out couch in the basement. Mom asked me about work. I said I managed guest services for a hotel chain, which was partly true. Dad nodded, happy I had steady hours, comparing it to Direct's coaching schedule. Isabella had big holiday dinners in their new house with a fancy kitchen, and I brought store-bought cookies so they wouldn't ask too many questions. No one noticed my expensive watch or the little change in how I stood. To take care of the Scottsdale house without always traveling, I hired Ronan as the property manager. Ronan had worked with a luxury house before, was super organized and very careful. He arranged weekly cleaning with safe products, checked the pool water, stocked the pantry, installed security cameras that connected to my phone, set up landscaping that could survive hot summers, and handled all the HOA emails. I never had to see a single email. The first time I went to the house after buying it, Ronan met me at the gate with a folder of warranties and a cold, sparkling water. "Everything's ready, Miss Morgan," he said. I corrected him, Tessa, gave him a spare key fob, and watched the automatic gates close behind me. For the first time, the house felt like mine. Early December, my phone buzzed with a message from Mom. She said, "Christmas this year is just the Directs family. We want it small and quiet with Isabella's side. They own that big hotel chain." I read it twice and set the phone down. My stomach twisted like it always did when I felt left out. There was no reason or apology, just the expectation I would be okay with it. I opened the family chat, which I hadn't used for years, and started calling relatives I hadn't talked to since last Christmas. Uncle Victor picked up on the second ring, surprised to hear my voice. "Your mom says the guest list is tight this year," he grumbled. Aunt Monica said the same thing, and Aunt Sabrina laughed bitterly while wrapping gifts. Everyone outside of Isabella's side was being left out. I realized it wasn't about space. It was about who looked good in pictures. Then I had an idea. Instead of feeling sad, I would host my own Christmas. I texted Ethan for help. He sent a thumbs up and a spreadsheet template. Within an hour, I wrote invites to the exact people Mom left out. Uncle Victor and Aunt Monica, Aunt Sabrina, cousins from both sides, old friends from high school, and former colleagues who understood discretion. 32 people in total, a mix of family and chosen family, people who cared about me. I sent a simple message on Christmas Eve. "Flights on me. Say yes." The replies came back fast, faster than hotel bookings during a busy season. The planning began. That same afternoon, Ronan checked airport schedules and booked first-class tickets from Tucson, Phoenix, and Flagstaff. He timed the arrivals so no one would be stuck in traffic. He arranged private SUVs with drivers waiting at baggage claim. I called a catering company I used for work and booked Santino as head chef. He specialized in Italian fusion. Perfect for people who wanted tasty comfort food, not fancy show-offs. We made a menu with build-your-own pasta stations, wood-fired pizzas from the outdoor oven, and a dessert bar with tiramisu shots in edible cups. Santino sent ingredient lists, and I approved fancy cuts of meat and imported cheeses without blinking at the cost. Next came gifts, all personal. Uncle Victor loved golf, so I ordered a custom driver with his initials. Aunt Monica loved vintage jewelry, so I got a pearl necklace from Tahiti. Aunt Sabrina coached youth soccer, so I wrapped noise-canceling headphones for plane rides and a spa voucher for recovery. Kids got tablets with games, adults got leather travel pouches with earbuds and portable chargers. I wrapped everything myself with ribbons matching the desert sunset, as Ronan suggested for decorations. Ronan handled the house setup. He hired extra staff, hung string lights across the courtyard, set up the sound system for soft jazz, and arranged flowers with succulents and white roses. The pool was drained and refilled with warm water for anyone brave enough to swim. He stocked the bar with top-shelf tequila, wine, and non-alcoholic drinks. Guest rooms got fresh linens, robes with initials, and welcome baskets with local treats. Ronan ran checklists like a general, checking every single detail, even the number of champagne glasses. By the time the last RSVP came in, the house was buzzing with controlled chaos. I stood on the patio, watching workers test fire pits, and realized this wasn't revenge. It was taking back what was mine. The people coming were the ones who celebrated me when no one else noticed. Now they would see the life I had built quietly. Mom's text stayed unanswered on my phone, a reminder of the line I finally drew. Christmas Eve morning, I checked the patio lights. They glowed soft amber, reflecting in the pool like coins. Ronan had finished his final walkthrough, confirming everything worked, and the backup generator was ready. I adjusted one flickering bulb and stepped back to see the courtyard ready as an outdoor dining room under the sky. At 10 o'clock, the first SUV drove through the gates. Uncle Victor stepped out in his best polo, eyes widening as the driver unloaded his luggage. Aunt Monica followed, smiling and hugging me. Cousins ran toward me, laughing and waving. The kids were shouting with excitement, happy to be in a new house with a pool and a big yard. Ronan directed everyone calmly, making sure each family got the luggage they needed. Inside, the house smelled like fresh flowers and pizza from the oven. Santino and his team were busy at the outdoor kitchen, tossing dough and stirring big pots of sauce. The table was long, decorated with white roses, succulents, and candles. Fire pits glowed in the courtyard, and the soft jazz music floated through the open windows. It felt warm and cozy, even in the cool desert night. We started with drinks and snacks. Adults sipped wine and tequila, while kids munched on cookies and fruit. I showed everyone around the house, pointing out the guest rooms, the pool, the small guest house, and the home theater. Everyone gasped and laughed at how fancy everything was, but it didn't feel too fancy. It felt welcoming. When dinner was ready, we all sat around the big table. People helped themselves at the pasta stations, making plates exactly the way they liked. The pizza from the oven smelled amazing. Tiramisu shots in little cups were set on the dessert table, and everyone grabbed one. The laughter was loud, warm, and happy. I watched my family enjoying themselves, smiling at each other, and sharing stories. After dinner, the kids ran outside to jump in the warm pool while the adults stayed near the fire pits, chatting and sipping drinks. Ronan was everywhere at once, making sure everything ran smoothly without anyone noticing him. I felt calm for the first time in years. This was my Christmas. My house. My rules. People who mattered to me were here, and no one could take that away. Later, we exchanged gifts. Uncle Victor loved his new Golf driver, and Aunt Monica cried softly when she saw the pearl necklace. Aunt Sabrina hugged me tight when she opened the headphones and spa voucher. Kids squealed over their new tablets. Everyone laughed and shared memories as they opened their presents. It was loud, bright, and perfect. By the time the night ended, the house was filled with happy, tired people. Everyone thanked me, hugged me, and promised to come again next year. I walked around the courtyard, looking at the glowing fire pits, the lights reflecting in the pool, and the happy faces of my family. I realized this wasn't about money or showing off or revenge. This was about love, family, and making people feel special. And for the first time, I felt proud, peaceful, and truly at home in my own house. Ronan locked the gates behind the last car, and I stood on the patio one last time, letting the quiet desert night wrap around me. My family was happy, my house was perfect, and for the first time, Christmas was exactly the way I wanted it. He slowly turned in a circle, his eyes wide, taking in the little house and the hills behind it. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in colors of pink and orange, and the mountains looked soft and magical in the distance. The smell of pine from the big tree in the living room mixed with the faint smell of warm cookies from the kitchen. He stopped, mouth slightly open, and whispered, "Tessa, this isn't a house. This is a fancy resort in Scottsdale." His voice cracked, and I could feel him shaking a little. I laughed, a soft, happy laugh, and wrapped my arms around him in a big hug. He hugged me back tightly, shoulders trembling with shock and disbelief. It felt good to see him this surprised, and I could feel the happiness in the air, almost like it was sparkling around us. Aunt Sabrina arrived just a few minutes later. Her heels clicked loudly on the paver stones, and she stopped at the door, frozen for a moment. Her hand flew to her mouth, and tears spilled down her cheeks before she could say a word. She whispered, "You did all this," and pulled me close in a big hug. "And they tried to leave you out." Her voice shook and I held her tight. I could feel her heart beating fast, full of surprise and happiness. Guests started arriving in small waves. Each reaction seemed to make the next one even bigger. My cousins snapped pictures by the fountain at the entrance, giggling and laughing as they posed. Some of my old co-workers wandered around, their eyes wide as they saw the golf simulator downstairs. "Wow," one of them said, pointing. "This is incredible." Ethan, my brother, was mixing mimosas at the outdoor bar. He laughed and told stories with the old developers from Miami, who had flown in just to see everything. The kids ran straight to the heated pool, jumping in with big splashes. Even though the air was cool, they didn't care. Their parents stood frozen, too surprised to scold them. Santino, the chef, was directing his team at the pizza oven. He tossed the dough in the air, spinning it like a circus performer while sauce bubbled in shiny copper pots. The smells of garlic and basil drifted everywhere, blending perfectly with the scent of the big pine tree in the living room. As the sun dipped lower, painting the mountains in soft pink and orange, we moved the feast outside. Long tables stretched 20 feet from one end to the other, covered with soft sand-colored tablecloths. Pretty plates glimmered under string lights, catching tiny sparkles that made the setting feel magical. Santino brought out big platters of food to share with everyone. There was lobster ravioli swimming in creamy saffron sauce, juicy meat falling off the bones, and colorful vegetables glazed with balsamic from manna. The smells were mouth-watering. Wine bottles were popped open, the corks flying with fun little pops. People talked and laughed, their voices overlapping in layers. One end of the table laughed loudly at a joke, and the other end shared quiet catching-up stories. Uncle Victor stood up in the middle of the meal and raised his glass. "To the host," he said, smiling at me, "who turned being left out into the best Christmas any of us have ever had." Everyone cheered and clinked glasses, and the sound bounced off the stone walls like music. At 7:30, the doorbell rang, cutting through the music and chatter. Ronan went to answer it and came back with a small figure bundled in a warm wool coat. Grandma Mabel shrugged off her coat, revealing a bright red sweater, cheerful despite the desert heat. "I told your mother I had the flu," she said with twinkling eyes, "but I caught the first flight out anyway." She hugged me so tightly that my feet lifted off the ground. There was no way she was missing this Christmas, not after what the family had tried to do. Grandma Mabel settled at the head of the table, like she had always belonged there. She took a plate from Santino and began telling the kids funny stories about my awkward middle school years. Ethan captured the moment on his phone, taking pictures of everyone gathered around the big tree. Grandma Mabel raised a glass of sparkling cider, and the pool lights changed colors, shifting from blue to gold. Ethan posted a photo carousel on Instagram with the caption, "Family is who shows up in Scottsdale." Within minutes, likes started pouring in from guests' accounts and tags flew across time zones. The social media algorithm shared the post with even more people. Cousins in Sierra Vista took screenshots and shared them in private messages. By dessert, cannoli towers and espresso avocado. The post had hundreds of reactions. Even people my mom had said didn't matter were liking and commenting. At 8:40, my phone vibrated. Derek's name flashed across the screen. I excused myself to the study, closed the French doors, and answered the speaker. "You're embarrassing the family," he said without even saying hello. Isabella's parents saw the pictures. "They're questioning our image." I leaned against the desk, keeping my voice calm. "This is my house, Derek, not your stage," I said. He kept talking, voice rising. "Take it down. People think we're dysfunctional." Grandma Mabel had quietly slipped in and was standing in the doorway. "Dysfunction started when you decided who mattered," she said softly, her voice calm but firm. I smiled slightly and said, "Enjoy your fancy little dinner," before ending the call and turning off the phone. Then I went back to the party, where nobody even noticed I had left. The laughter and warmth carried on around me. The next morning, I sat by the pool with a cup of coffee. The water lay still and calm under a clear blue sky, steam curling gently from my mug. Notifications on my phone stacked silently, waiting for me, but I didn't touch them yet. Guests had left in small waves, leaving thank you notes under pillows and half-eaten pastries on the counters. Ronan was organizing the cleanup crew before sunrise, but I waved him off. I wanted one quiet hour to just sit and breathe. Finally, I looked at my phone. There were 23 missed calls, all from Tucson numbers. Mom called first. Her voice cracked the moment I answered. "Tessa, please pick up the pieces," she said, almost crying. "Everyone's talking." She described what had happened in pieces. Relatives were canceling New Year plans. Old friends were asking questions in the grocery store aisles. Then Dad called. His voice was softer than I remembered. "We were wrong to care only about appearances," he said. "Come home. We'll make it right." I listened quietly, watching a little lizard dart across the patio stones. Finally, Derek grabbed the phone. "You owe us an explanation," he said. Isabella's father had pulled a big endorsement deal, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because of my Christmas party. The agreement promised photo shoots, social media takeovers, and even a clothing line. All of it was gone. Derek's side coaching job stayed, but the loss was public, and it hurt. Local news even wrote about family values and hotels. I set my mug down. "I don't owe anyone a performance," I said. "I chose peace instead of pretending." Mom cried softly in the background. Derek muttered about lawsuits. I ended the call and blocked every number connected to that house. News of what happened traveled faster than holiday traffic. A cousin in Sierra Vista forwarded an email from Isabella's father, saying the deal was canceled because it didn't match their brand. Mom and Dad realized invitations for future gatherings were drying up. Aunts who used to host potlucks said they were too busy. Neighbors stopped waving from driveways. Their Christmas card list got smaller before decorations were even taken down. That same week, I transferred funds to help Grandma Mabel move. She had said she wanted a smaller place closer to warmth. I wired enough for a 2-bedroom condo in a Scottsdale senior community, with a pool and a shuttle to shops. She called after the realtor confirmed the closing. "You didn't have to," she said, her voice full of relief. I had already packed her favorite plates. Ronan coordinated the movers and put together a welcome basket with her favorite teas. Grandma Mabel settled in before January, sending me pictures of the cactus garden she could see from her patio. The silence that followed felt earned. No more obligatory texts about Derek's milestones. No more guilt trips disguised as concern. Ethan checked in once, asking if I needed legal cover. I told him the best defense was distance. Former guests reached out with updates. Uncle Victor booked a golf trip using the club credit I gifted Aunt Sabrina. They were planning a girls' weekend at a luxury property. Their messages carried gratitude without expectation. I replied to each, keeping conversations open for the people who showed up when it mattered. Looking back, the lesson became clear on quiet mornings like this one. Favoritism doesn't just hurt the overlooked. It poisons the favored too, creating impossible expectations. Derek learned that appearances are fragile when the truth goes viral. Mom and Dad discovered that social capital disappears without genuine connection. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors I control. Sharing success with people who truly care builds real community. Flaunting success for approval only brings isolation. I don't carry hate anymore. Resentment takes up space better used for people who choose me without conditions. Christmas now belongs to those who travel across states to sit at my table in Scottsdale, who celebrate wins big and small, who ask how I'm doing and wait for the answer.